Y'all ready to get started? Well, first off, I want to thank y'all all for coming. I'm Senator Brandon Beach from District 21, which is North Fulton and Cherokee. You know, I serve as chairman of the Transportation Committee, but I also am on the Economic Development Committee. And I want to talk to you today about a bill that is truly an economic development bill. It's about jobs and economic development. You know, we're very fortunate in this state to be the #1 state to do business. And what I want to introduce today is the Rural Georgia Jobs and Growth Act. And what that is we want to bring the equine industry to Georgia. We have seen what it's done in Indiana and other states when they have passed this type of legislation. 500 horse farms in southern Indiana, hay farms, and so on. So we want to do the same thing, and we want to really be part of the thoroughbred breeding industry. And I'm gonna turn it over to Dean Reeves in a second, but I just want to tell you that this is a job creation bill. It will have over $1 billion of an economic impact. He's going to talk to you about the possibility of getting the Breeders' Cup if this bill passes, which is the Super Bowl of horse racing, which we're hosting the Super Bowl for football right now. And we think that will be able to happen. So it's very good for not only short-term jobs and from construction standpoint of building the facilities that would have to be built, it's long-term jobs. And I'm gonna let Dean talk a little more about that. But I'm really excited about this because of the impact it'll have on rural Georgia, and that it's not just for Atlanta, it's across the state, and it's a good jobs bill. And again, the economic impact, and really, when you look at our location, there's horse racing down in Florida, there's horse racing in Kentucky and New York, and there's nothing really in the middle, and we have the perfect climate for a 2-month, 8 to 10 week meet racing schedule, if you will, and we will bring horses into our area, and with the racetrack, we will have money that will be put into a breeding fund to really push the breeding of horses, and really that's where the money is in the breeding and the auctions, and then you have a really holistic industry of the equine industry, and that's what we're pushing for. Does it have a horse racing component? Yes, and it's critical to have that component to do the breeding and the horse farms and the hay farms and the auctions, but that's what we're going to do. I'm excited about it because I love creating jobs. That's what I do for a living, economic development, and this is definitely a job creator. What I'd like to do now is introduce a gentleman, and I know a lot of y'all have heard of the horse Macho Man that won the Breeders' Cup a few years ago. Dean Reeves was the owner of Macho Man. He's invested in the horse racing business. He understands the horse racing business. So I'd like to turn it over to him to talk a little bit about breeding and also talk about the Breeders' Cup. We have a letter from the Breeders' Cup that if this were to pass, we could host the Breeders' Cup, which again is the Super Bowl of horse racing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Reeves. He'll speak, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Beach. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Dean Reeves. My wife, Patty, and I own Reeves Thoroughbred Racing, and I'm also the president of the Georgia Horse Racing Coalition. I want to start first, since we are a few days away from the Super Bowl here in Atlanta, to talk to you a minute about the opportunity that we will have to host the 2021 Breeders' Cup. Now, the Breeders' Cup is a week-long event, much like the Super Bowl. It is $26 million currently in purse monies, and it's races on 2 days, a Friday and Saturday. Both days are televised by NBC Sports and NBC on Saturday. The impact is about $90 million for that week, and we will bring in fans from all over the country and the world. It brings in the top trainers and, of course, the top equine athletes that will travel. Quite a few will fly in from Europe, Australia, around the world to participate in the Breeders' Cup. So again, this is a great opportunity. I've got this letter from the Breeders' Cup from their President and Chief Executive Officer, Craig Fravel, and they would be very excited to bring the Breeders' Cup to a location such as Atlanta, with our hotels, with the airport, and the restaurants. It would be a great fit for the Breeders' Cup. So I have a copy of this letter for you, if anyone would like to get a copy of that. The other thing I want to talk about just a second is the breeding. This is a very important component. This creates quite a bit of jobs, mainly in the Middle and South Georgia area, where you'll be able to have your mares on site here in Georgia. You'll foal the horses here, and the breeders program will get a certain amount of dollars from the track. And so with that, when you breed your horses here, we will have state bred races at the track for Georgia bred horses. And with that, then those horses run against other Georgia bred horses, and that's one component of the breeding that we'll have here in Georgia. The other is when a Georgia bred runs here and runs in open company, that means they would be running against horses from Kentucky, Florida, or ones that bred in New York. They will get additional purse money on top of the normal purse money because they are Georgia bred. So there are quite a few incentives. To give you an example, in France, the French breds get a 60% increase on the purse. So let's say they won a $10,000 purse, they would get 60% in addition, so that would make the purse for them $16,000. So you can see that's a great incentive. It has done wonders in France. The state of New York, it has done so well in the state of New York that they have their own New York bred sales. So that's an indication of how it can mushroom into a secondary economic impact by having sales of just Georgia bred horses. The other thing it does for the Georgia bred horses, by having these incentives, if you take a Georgia bred horse to some of the major sales in Kentucky and Florida and New York, that the value of your Georgia bred horse is higher because of the purse dollars that we're going to have here in the state. So thus, when more and more people will start to breed here, sell Georgia bred horses, because there is a market for them to improve on the purse monies. So those are two major things. This is a major industry, and we look forward to the coming events to get this bill passed, and we appreciate Senator Beach carrying this bill for us. Thank you.
Okay, I got a couple final things, and then we'll open it up for questions. One is that this bill, I've got 5 signatures on it already, and I'll be dropping it today. It is truly a bipartisan bill. We have myself as the main signer. We have Senator Burt Jones. We have Senator Jeff Mullis. And then we have Senator Ed Harbison and Senator Emanuel Jones. So it's truly a bipartisan bill. I think this is about jobs and again, economic growth. And let me say one other thing. I was adamant within the bill. There will be no tax incentives, no tax breaks. This will be all private investment. It'll be $550 million of private money. We're not going to build a parking deck for them. We're not going to give them tax abatements or TADs or anything. This will be done in private money. They are so confident that this industry will do well with the breeding and the horse farms and hay farms and just the really bringing the equine industry here to Georgia, that they don't need that. And what I envision is very similar to what the Braves built. There'll be a horse track, and then there'll be a hotel component and a office component and some condos and restaurants and retail. That's the thing now. So in talking to these folks at the Georgia Horse Racing Coalition, they want to buy 150 acres, and they want to do a real estate development very similar to the Battery. And the Battery has been hugely successful, even when the Braves aren't playing there. You go there and there's people eating and shopping and living and working at Comcast and so on at that headquarters there, and there's a hotel now that's full all the time. So we envision that same thing here with this development. So with that, again, I want to just say this one last time. It's bringing the equine industry here, creating thousands of jobs, $550 million investment with no tax incentives or tax dollars, all private investment. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, and we'll answer any questions you have. The other thing I would tell you is this is not going to have any craps tables or blackjack or any casino. This is horse racing only, okay? With that, I'll open it up for questions. Anybody have questions?
This 150-acre facility, is there a site picked out for that? Where is that?
That would be up to the private industry. We're not gonna, I'm not gonna dictate where it goes. I'll let you answer that.
We have looked at several sites. I mean, we may even need as much as 300 acres to house a complete facility because we are going to be adding other components, but we have not nailed that down yet.
Any particular areas that facility could be? I mean, you thinking towards Augusta,
It
Lake
could
Oconee,
be.
Lexington
I
Fair?
think right now it's all open. We have looked down I-20 toward Augusta. We've looked on the 85 corridor, the I-400 corridor. So there's a lot of opportunities, and we'll do extensive studies when we get a little bit closer to
When the
that.
bill allows for the potential to have 3 tracks, 3 licenses, if you will, and, but I think that'll all be market-driven of what the market would want to do.
Can I get you just back on Mike since we're
Oh,
recording?
all right, sorry.
Actually, I interviewed you back in April about this, and you talked about the idea of these facilities having casinos. Is that something maybe just down the road that you're hoping
No,
for,
this
or
facility won't have a casino.
this one? I mean,
No.
you said, but is that something you would want to see down the road, possibly?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. This
And-
is a horse racing facility. We're gonna have, I think ideally, you can see what the Battery's done with the Braves Stadium. It's really, if you just took the baseball field out and put a horse track in the middle there, then you're basically, that's what we're gonna have.
Any reaction, Senator, from, have you talked to leadership in terms of the governor's office or lieutenant governor? They're kind of on, making clear that this is not casino or gambling related. They're pretty
I have
on
made
board.
it perfectly clear to our leadership in the Senate. I'm not gonna speak for the governor's office or the speaker's office, but I will tell you, our leadership is very clear on what we're trying to do with bringing the equine industry and helping rural Georgia, and with horse farms and hay farms. It has been hugely successful in Indiana. Governor Mike Pence was the governor at the time, our vice president, when this was enacted in Indiana. And he was a very conservative governor, and he was all on board with it because he saw what it did. I believe there's 500 horse farms, and I forget the name of the town, but it's really done well. And I don't know if you've ever been to Keeneland up in Kentucky, but that's the kind of track these guys are wanting to build. And Keeneland is referred to as the Augusta National of horse racing. And we want to build that same type of boutique, world-class facility. The Breeders' Cup isn't going to come here if it's not world-class. And we're going to build a world-class facility if we're able to pass this. And I think there is bipartisan support for this, and pari-mutuel wagering is a lot different than casino gaming. You know, it's a pool of betting, so we'll leave it at that. But I think that it can be successful as a standalone horse racing industry.
Senator, can you talk a little bit about your sense of the state of the horse breeding industry already here in Georgia, or would this be totally starting from scratch?
I don't think you can have a horse breeding industry, and he can talk more about it because I'm not a, you know, I don't own horses, but if you don't have a fund there to help promote it, and you're not gonna have a fund unless you have the track to help generate revenue and really promote it like they did in New York. And then what happens is when you have Georgia horsebred thoroughbreds, then you have people flying here from China, Saudi Arabia, sheiks coming in and paying millions of dollars for these horses. They're not cheap, and we get 7% sales tax on that. So it is a revenue generator if we can build up that horse breeding. And I don't know if you can add more to it, Dean, but I would tell you the racing component is important to fund the breeding component and really let people know you're in the you're in the thoroughbred industry, you're in the equine industry. And we have, let me tell you this, we have 80,000 horses that come through from Florida to Kentucky and New York every year. They're passing through our state, and we are not benefiting from that. And this can be a benefit by passing this legislation and really saying, hey, we want to be in this business. No different than what we did for the film industry. We gave them a tax incentive. We weren't doing films in Georgia. Now we're number one. Well, I guess we're behind Canada now. The whole country had to take us to beat us, but we're doing more than Hollywood. And it's not only film and movies here. Now they've put roots down. They're doing the post-production. They're doing the you know, the studios, and they're making investment in our state. And I think that's what the breeding will do, is it'll create investment in different farms and so on, and really help us grow that industry, no different than what we did in the film industry. So we're just making the statement, we want to be in the equine industry, and we want to be a player in that. We got the right climate, and I think Atlanta's the right destination with, you know, Atlanta, Hartsfield Jackson Airport. We can do really well, and I think we can do well in South Georgia if we do attract